Productions. Hiya monsters, and thanks for stopping by. Have you guys played the new Cuphead game? Do you like it? Let us know in the comments below. Well, speaking of Cuphead, tonight's story is called Cuphead is Not What It Seems. Now you can find the original story in the description below, and big shouts to the author, and also big shouts out to you guys. Well, alright monsters, without further ado, let the story begin. Cuphead is not what it seems. Warning: the following story actually happened to me. Do not do what I describe doing in the following story. Man, I wish I had this knowledge. So, this past Wednesday, I was delighted to discover that a new game called Cuphead had been released. I had been anticipating for it quite a while, and its existence had slipped my mind. I had recently been at a friend's house and seen him playing it on his Xbox One for a moment, but I never got the opportunity to play it myself. I'm not proud to admit it, but I didn't want to spend money on a game. Normally I do try to purchase indie games, to support the developers, but I had recently made a purchase to repair my car's transmission, so I was low on cash. Now, I wasn't entirely familiar with how to pirate video games. My friend's older brother had told me how to do it before, but I didn't recall the website he had shown me. I knew it was something like Black Skull Games or something, so that's what I googled. I clicked the first site that wasn't an ad and was greeted with a page that looked straight out of the early 1990 days of the internet, or worse, the dark web. The stark black page contained only 3 things: a search bar, aerial text displaying the name of the page, Skull Black Gaming, and an image of a real skull that had been spray painted black, clearly taken with a digital camera, maybe around 2006. It was unsettling to think someone's actual skeleton had been defaced like that. Well, however, it was possible it could have been a fake. So I brushed it off and began to search. Cuphead. I typed into the search bar and quickly pressed the enter key, patiently waiting to play the game. The first and only result, the text displaying Cuphead, early copy 2015. I was stunned. This wasn't the newest, most polished copy of the game, but it was a rare opportunity to play an older version of the game that had been in development for a long time. Well, not only that, but 2015 was when I had been most interested in the game's development. It appeared as though the file had been uploaded to the site that very year. If only I had known at that time, I could have been playing it years before everyone else. I quickly hit the download button and it instantly appeared into my download box. CUPHEAD.EXE. I double-clicked it and was shocked to hear the blaring alarm from my antivirus software. I quickly turned it off, as I knew pirated games often set off the software, as my friend's brother had told me. The game began loading and I was greeted with a logo of the game's company, MGPK. Then, the opening cutscene began. I was delighted to see the old-timey animation and the smiling faces of Cuphead and his friend Mugman. However, there appeared to be no prompt to continue, and I began hitting every key on the keyboard to proceed. Minutes passed and I became distressed, but then I glanced up towards the screen and noticed something had changed. Cuphead was no longer bobbing up and down, as was his normal looping animation. He was just standing there, completely still, but not as though the game's animation had froze. No, he was swaying and I could see his chest rise and fall in an eerily realistic fashion. He stared directly at the screen, almost as though he was looking through it directly at me. That's weird, I said, under my breath, trying to brush it off and look for the controller. Now, perhaps that's what the issue was. I needed a controller to continue the game. I stood up from my seat and began searching for one. But as I walked away from the screen, something changed. The music had stopped, and when I turned back, Mugman was gone. Only Cuphead remained, standing in the middle of the screen, staring still directly at me. What the hell? I said, slowly approaching the screen, ready to hit the escape key. Slowly, he began lowering his head, and I mashed the escape, not wanting to see what would come next. But however, the escape key didn't work, and neither did the Control-Alt-Delete. Cuphead tilted his head down far enough to reveal what his cup truly contained. Steeped in the liquid was none other than a Harley Quinn fetus, bloated and pink, with pus and vomit, its mouth opening and closing with the tide of the jostling liquid in the cup. I gasped, disgusted by what I saw on the screen before me. The fetus's arms, fins, were flapping ineffectively in the liquid. Its head kept it buoyant, for it was bloated beyond any proportional logic. Its skin is lustrous. I wasn't sure if it was from the broth or from the murky afterbirth pool at its shiny flanks. A severed umbilical cord draped over the edge of the Cuphead's head, frayed like a dry rope. There's a dent on top of the fetus's skull. Soft, pushed inward, pressure assaulting an already malformed and undersized brain. Its eyes are blasted over with cataracts. The unnerving blue orb sunken into the malleable and uncanny, almost human visage. As I backed up, Cuphead's eyes began rolling back into his cup head, and he smiled, almost as though he was happy to see what he carried in his head this entire time. I quickly ran to my computer's power cord and pulled, the screen flashing an eerie blank screen. I collapsed to the ground, crying from what I had just seen. Was this truly an early copy of the game? Did the developers put this in there? It looked too realistic to be drawn, or even be a 3D model. Whatever the reason was, or whatever the source, I couldn't bear to see any images of gameplay of the new Cuphead, for I and only I truly knew the dark secret that resided inside.